Welcome. In this video, we will discuss about the Eastern Dedicated Frieght Corridor. So recently, PM inaugurated the section of a Eastern Corridor Frieght Corridor from the Bhopur to the Khurja section. So that is the extent to which he recently launched the Frieght Corridor, and that is why the Eastern Dedicated Frieght Corridor was in news. So we will study about the various salient features of the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor, and apart from that we will also shed a light on why dedicated freight corridor is very important for the smooth movement of goods across the country. So that is one thing we will study in this video. So let's start. So these are the various details of the Eastern Freight Corridor, Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor. Just remember that. What is the length? It is going to be around 1856 kilometer. Now I know, like, when you are preparing, it looks like a headache that you have to remember each and everything, but this is an important data. Like, this is something you could remember. Even if you could remember it to an approximate 1800 kilometer, that is also fine. But again, this is something I would really advise that you at least remember. Then it consists of two distinct segments. One is an electrified double track segment and the other one is electrified single track segment. So both of these tracks are going to be electrified, but one is going to be the double track and the other one is going to be the single track. So this is going to be under two components. In the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor, one going to be a double lane, the other one is going to be a single lane. Where it start from? So it starts from the Senegal near Ludhiana, Punjab, and will pass through the states of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand to terminate at the Dhankuni in West Bengal. So this particular Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor is going to start from the Punjab and will end in the West Bengal. So that is the length of this particular corridor. Which is the company or which is the agency is responsible for the construction? It is the Dedicated Freight Corridor Corporation of India Limited, which is an SPV. Now what is exactly your SPV? So this is what is known as the special purpose vehicle. So they are created specifically for a certain task. So for this case, this particular organization or corporation has been set up to complete the construction of dedicated freight corridor. So this is the functionality of a special purpose vehicle. In order to expedite the whole process, these are the agency which were created, which will be terminated once their objective is done. So this is the understanding of a special purpose vehicle. Now we just heard that the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor run from the Punjab to the West Bengal. So the idea behind this is to provide the better integration of movements of goods across the state. For an example, the coal. So the coal which is present in the West Bengal or in the eastern state could be transported to other areas where the steel factories are located, coal and iron. So all these things are actually to provide more connection to the whole process, and that is why that is the whole process of creating the dedicated freight corridor. So this is important. Remember what is the starting point, what is the end point, which all state it will pass through, what is the length, and which implementing agency is working for its construction. So these are very important details. This slide is very important. You should pay more focus to it can, and that is all. That is exactly, in fact, all the things that you need to know about the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor. Apart from the thing that how significant it is, we just talk about how it will help in the easier movements of good from one place to another. We just saw that all these estates have various, like, foods and cereals are produced in Punjab and Haryana, which could be transported easily to the other section like Jharkhand and West Bengal. So these are the various details that you should know. Now let's move forward and try to understand why the idea of dedicated freight corridor was actually come into being and why they are so important. First of all, we have to understand that there is an increased burden, which means carrying a total of around 10,122 kilometer. These corridors carry the heaviest traffic and are highly congested. The route carries 52% of passenger traffic and 58% of freight traffic, according to the Make in India report of 2017. Also, these routes are highly saturated with line capacity utilization reaching as high as 150%. So this is in fact one of the reason why dedicated freight corridor are necessary, because the corridors or the like the movement which is still happening has been saturated to an extent where it is even reached the limit of 150%. Now this is an important data that you need to know, that why we actually need the dedicated freight corridor, because these freight corridors are actually constructed along the lines where the traffic has been very congested. For an example, these routes, the dedicated freight corridors, wherever they are being formed, over here it is carrying 52% of passengers and 58% of freights, which means that eventually they clash and leads to traffic congestion. To decongest the area, it is advisable that there is a separate dedicated freight corridor where the goods movement is happening. Then there is also a rise in demand. We know that India is making progress, the economic integration is going on at a pace. So in that case, there is a rise in demand also. There is a rise in transport demand, overly congested route and greenhouse gas emission associated with the road transport. These freight corridors will help reduce the cost and allow faster transportation. So we are not only talking about that there is an increase in demand, but we should also consider that road transportation lead to something called as GHG emission, greenhouse gas emission, which are the major culprit for the global warming. And eventually India is a signatory to the Paris Agreement, which says that we have to limit the emission of greenhouse gases. So in that regard also, these will eventually help India to reduce the traffic on the roads and have a dedicated freight corridor. And finally, the revenue generation also. They will open new avenues for investment, as this will lead to the construction of industrial corridor, a logistic park along these routes. So this is the major thing that you need to know, that we are not just like, obviously there are demands, but there has to be a point of revenue generation also. We cannot start creating roads when they are not leading to the development of the entire region. So this particular dedicated freight corridor are important in terms of revenue generation also, because along the corridor, various industrial corridor will come up, logistical parks will come up, and that will lead to more employment when you are talking about construction. Then when these parks are, for an example, constructed and located, they will employ more people for the better functioning. So all this will lead to better economic development along the route of the dedicated freight corridors, apart from generating revenues for the government also. These are the various important significance of the dedicated freight corridor. Now in 2018 mains examination, UPSC has asked about the dedicated freight corridor. So there was a question where they have asked about the various dedicated freight corridors. So in that regard, this topic is important, where you have to understand why they are formed, what is the major root of it, and why they are important. Now let's just quickly look into the graphical representation, what you can call is on the map. So this is the project map for the dedicated freight corridor. So we just talk about the Ludhiana to Dankuni, that is your eastern dedicated freight corridor. Then we also have from Dadri to Palghar, that is near to your Mumbai, that is your western dedicated freight corridor. So these are important corridors which has been highlighted over here, and these are something which are along the industrial line and will help India to boost about the movement. So once the transportation movement becomes easier, it will lead to better progress in the processing of industries also. So these are important from that aspect. So I hope you have understood this video. This topic is important from your GS paper 1, where you talk about the various industry in the concept of geography, and also your GS paper 3, where you are talking about the economic growth of the region. So this topic is kind of overlapping in both of the papers. So if you have any doubt, feel free to drop a comment. Thank you.